Soap, as we know it, is a cleaning agent, whether for your hands, dirty dishes, laundry detergent, or heavy-duty cleaners. Soaps from thousands of years ago to today hasn't changed all that much, and in every case, it works pretty much the same way, working as a surfactant, emulsifying oils, letting oil and water mix in solution. And today is no different. Today we are going to be creating solid soap. Solid soap has been around a long time. And it wasn't until recently, in 1865, a man named William Shepard patented and created liquid soap. At the time, you can believe this was a really big deal, but ultimately, this led to all the shampoos, conditioners, and body washes that you normally use today. And as for solid soaps, there's records that it depicts back thousands and thousands of years. Historically, it was created with water, animal fat, and ash, the ash being a base. Today we are going to be using sodium hydroxide as our base. Soap is created with triglycerides. This is the fat storage molecule for animals and plants. It is the two types of oil we'll be using today for our soap. Later in the video, we will talk and break down how a strong base reacts with triglycerides and why it forms soap you clean with rather than oil you use for cooking. There are two different methods for creating soap, the cold process and the hot process. The hot process requires you to cook or heat up your solution to about 80 to 100 degrees Celsius, while the cold process doesn't require any temperature at all, but it does take a lot more time. Both methods have their lists of pros and cons. For cold process soap, it is much easier to control, mold, and add different essential oils to your soap. You don't have to worry about the different flash points between essential oils. The soap making process in itself is much quicker, cleaner, and just easier to handle, and can be molded to a greater level of detail than hot process soap. Though that being said, it takes a long time to cure, between 4 to 6 weeks before you can even use it, while the hot process soap can be made, molded, cured all within 24 hours. Though it's much harder to use, you have to move much faster, and you have to be aware of flash points in whatever colors or scents you're adding to it. And the outcome of the soap also changes. It looks more rustic, more Renaissance, from a different time period. The biggest downside to working with hot process soap is how quick you have to be to not let it cool down too much. If you let it cool down too much or too fast, it will break apart into small pieces that require rebatching. This will be the first video on how to make cold process soap. I will also be making a video on how to make hot process soap as well as liquid soap, so stay tuned for that. On to the video. Hello everyone, and today we'll be making homemade soap. All the ingredients will be shown up on the screen and the measurements will be shown as we use them. The goal of this video is to make soap that is good for your skin, it has a good latherability, and it's appealing to look at, with vibrant colors, high level of details in the final product. Let's get right into it. First step, let's mix all the oils together. Coconut oil, castor oil, olive oil, and pure lard, which is optional. If you don't want to add the lard, just add olive oil to however much lard you're going to use. Here, I'm just adding in the 300 grams of coconut oil, 230 grams of olive oil. You can use vegetable oil or grapeseed oil as well. Olive oil is just really nice, really soft, gives a good latherability at the end. 60 grams of pure lard. Here we are just using Tenderflake. This gives the soap a creamy and soft feeling. And 60 grams of castor oil. Castor oil is great for your hair and skin. It also increases the latherability of your soap. After combining all the oils into the container, throw it into the microwave for about a minute or so until everything melts with occasional stirring. As that happens, we're going to move on to making the sodium hydroxide mixture. For the mixture, we are using distilled water and sodium hydroxide. Distilled water is preferred but not mandatory. You want to pour the sodium hydroxide in after the water and at small quantities at a time with constant stirring. This solution is exothermic and it will produce heat. Be very careful when doing this step. Always wear some gloves and avoid any chemical burns. While doing this mixture, another byproduct of it is hydrogen gas. You do not want to breathe this in. Make sure you're in a well-ventilated area. As you can see, I actually moved mine underneath the oven duct just for better ventilation, but definitely make sure you're in a well-ventilated space to avoid breathing any of this in. But that being said, It's not a huge deal if you do splash some on your hands. Just go over and wash your hands in under like cold water. The sodium hydroxide does react with the oil on your hand to produce soap as well, so that's pretty cool. To the oils, we add sodium hydroxide solution. When it's added, we can already see it becoming a bit cloudy. That is the start of the reaction. If you want to create lots of cold soaps, I highly suggest getting yourself a hand blender. It will save you tons of time compared to doing it by hand. As we are mixing, what is happening here is sponification. It is the root of creating soap, and it literally means turning into soap. The triglycerides in the oil that we used are being hydrolyzed, forming fatty acids and glycerol. In principle, we are breaking down the backbone or tail of the glycerol as the sodium hydroxide sponifies this solution. Sodium hydroxide is consumed in this reaction. Having too little or too much will determine the pH levels of your soap, and it could end up being irritating to the skin. So it is recommended to use more oil than is needed, as you get a smoother and creamier soap regardless. Keep in mind that when doing the cold method of making soap, once molded it takes 2 weeks to dry and another 2 to 4 weeks to let any other water evaporate off of it. When you are blending your soap, I recommend blending on and off. It doesn't take too long to reach a state that's called trace or the trace point. At trace, we have a stable emulsion, having two fluids that usually cannot mix together being combined into solution. If the soap is still watery, keep blending. As you blend, it will reach a thicker and thicker trace, though you can stop anytime you like. The difference in a thin or thick trace is the amount of detail you want in your soaps to the final product. I recommend a light to medium trace to add scents, swirls, or add things inside of your soap. A thick trace is good for fancy soaps with more intricate designs. We then separate the soap into multiple containers so we can make multiple different types of soap. In all containers, I am adding titanium dioxide mica powder for the colors. It is non-irritating and non-toxic to the skin. I add green mica powder and peppermint scent and give it a good stir. I then use the molds that I want for that soap and then I put it aside. In the next container, I add a pinkish red mica powder and I add a scent that I picked up at a local Asian market called Dragon's Blossom. It smells kinda rosy, so I decided to make it red. And as you can see, we're adding a few drops of the essential oils. It doesn't take much to have a very strong scent, and they come out very slow. So definitely experiment on what works for you. We add that to our mold, and then we set that one aside. For this one, we're going to try and keep it as white as possible. This one is just coconut. We'll put that into our mold, and then we'll set that aside as well. The next one, tangerine. So I do want to give a little bit of a warning on fruity essential oils. Fruity essential oils typically smell much stronger than their perfumey, flowery variants. You want to use less essential oil when working with fruity scents. This one's tangerine. We add some orange mica powder, give that a stir, put it in the mold, and set it aside. For the next one, I decided to get a little bit fancy. We got cotton essential oil here with a light blue mica powder. Hopefully this has a very fresh scent. We're going to add that into the mold and we're going to set that one aside as well. And here I'm just going to grab a small piece of the leftover soap that we have. I'm just going to give a quick demonstration. This has been sitting for about an hour, give or take. So it is definitely not cured in any way, but you can still see the soap lathering and cleaning. So now it's been quite a while since I filmed this video, and now it's time to showcase all of the soap. So enjoy. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. It really helps the channel, and we got a ton more science videos to come. I love doing them. Have a great day.